What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DylanTalksTone. Today we're going to go to the bench and I am going to help you learn to use a multimeter and troubleshoot problems on your electric guitar. This was a video that you all requested. There are kind of 5 main components in an electric guitar that we need to troubleshoot if we have problems. Don't worry about it. It's very easy. I'm going to show you how. So let's get straight into it after I remind you to make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, go to the little scanny thing right there and go to DylanTalksTone because we have all of the parts that you need to fix your electric guitar if you have problems. Everything from replacing pickups to pots and caps and jacks and all the things that you need, even the wire, to do the job. So go check that out. You can scan that little thing. And you can also support the channel by joining Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. So let's jump straight into this video. All right, first things first, we need to learn how to use a multimeter. If you've never seen a multimeter before, it might look a little confusing or a little overwhelming because there's a bunch of buttons. Actually, Brandon, can you hand me that other multimeter right there too? So here's a few different ones. I'll give it back to you in a minute. Here is a few different multimeters that you can buy at relatively different price points. I would say it kind of goes in this order. This is the one that I use on the channel and at the shop every day because it's, well, it's kind of pro-ish. The Fluke 115, they're about 200 bucks. It does a bunch of stuff. It's very reliable. I've been using it for many years. This is a simpler one. This is the Fluke 101. This is the one Brianna uses on her side of the bench, and it works really, really well. And then this is one that you can get on Amazon for not a lot of money. Now, we can look at all the buttons. We don't need to care about basically any of them. I want to show you the one that matters for what we're going to do. So we have voltage AC with a little wave. We have voltage DC with the straight line button. Sometimes we use those, but the thing we use the most is, you see this little symbol that looked like Mary Tyler Moore's hair right there? That is the ohms reading, which is the resistance. Okay, we're going to use that for basically all of the tests that we do on an electric guitar. So on this meter, you can see little Mary Tyler Moore's hair right there. And if we look on this meter and we change it over to, let's see. Okay, so this one actually is in orange right there, and see it shows up right there. So that's for that one. And then on this meter, we've got it right here. And so that is the setting that we're going to have it on. And on some meters, you got to make sure you're plugged into the right terminal down here. So the black one is going to go into the common, and then the red one's going to go into whichever one has little Mary Tyler Moore's hair right there. So now we are ready to test stuff with our meter leads. I'll give this one back to you, Brianna. Now, what readings are we going to want to see when we use our meter? We have OL, and that's basically going to be when nothing is going on or when you have an open circuit, when something is disconnected. When we take our 2 meters or 2 leads and we put them together, we get 0 resistance or a direct short. Now on some meters it's going to show 0, 0, 0, 0 all the way across. Mine just shows 0, so 0.2, 0.1, basically 0. That means it's a short. That means a direct connection. Sometimes you want a direct connection between 2 things. Sometimes you don't want a direct connection between 2 things. And we'll get into that in just a minute. The other thing you'll see is the actual resistance of something. So let's kick this over to the side. Let's grab a Stratocaster pickup. Okay. And let's measure between 2 points on a Stratocaster pickup, and you will see the actual resistance being 7.13 K. And so there you go. That's the 3 different things you're really going to be looking for. Either an open circuit where nothing is connected, a closed circuit where it's connected with nothing in between and just basically a dead short or a proper connection, or the resistance of a thing in between, okay? So let's look at some of the components on a guitar and what the measurements should look like when we measure them. All right, so let's go through some of the things that you would actually check. So here's what I would do. First of all, what I would do is I would get a guitar, I would plug it into an amp with a good cable. Make sure that the cable is good, okay? Wiggle the output jack and make sure that the output jack is getting good contact. If you right away have a problem because you have crackling when you wiggle your cable, then there's two things that could happen. I'll use a conventional output jack to show you. Typically, there are two things that could happen. One, you could have a broken solder joint right here, which just needs to be reflowed, which means you could just take a hot soldering iron, just touch against it, and make sure that it's reflowed and it's having good contact, okay? The other thing that's even more common is, especially on inexpensive guitars, well, with cheaper components, this little guy right here, he can wear out, and then he can't make good contact against the plug. So what you can do is take this out of the guitar, or just pull it out and pull it out of the guitar, and then just bend this so that it makes good contact against the plug. If that doesn't work, then you can replace it. This is $4 or $5, right? We use these pure tone ones, and they actually grab on both sides, and they're freaking awesome. And I think are they $5 maybe? I don't know. They're real inexpensive. They're on the website. They're super inexpensive. So that's the first thing I would check. And then the next thing I would check, if we're not having any volume on the guitar, let's say the guitar's totally dead. If we know that the output jack has a good connection, the next piece of the guitar that affects the entire guitar, so if nothing is working or if the whole guitar is cutting out, it's the volume pot. Because the volume pot is the next piece that affects the entire guitar. So here's what we would check. We would make sure of a couple of things. First, we would turn the pot all the way up, and we would make sure that it is grounded to the output jack. Grounded means no resistance, direct connection like we just talked about, 0 ohms. Boom, so it's connected. Now, we also want to check the value of the pot is at the output jack. So, with the volume on 10, make sure that we have 500K, which I have 499, which is pretty close because this is a 500K pot. Now, if this was a 250K pot, it would be about that. If it was a 330K pot, it would be about that. Remember that most pots are within 20%, especially, or maybe even worse, on inexpensive guitars. So just understand that it could move around a little bit. Then turn the pot all the way down, and take the same measurement again. You should have a short. So that's with the volume all the way down. That's with the volume all the way up. Now what you can do is you can also clip your leads to this and sweep through the pot and see if it jumps around and does kind of crazy stuff. That's usually because when it crackles, that means it's either dirty or wearing out. So if your pot is crackling, but we get good value at 10 and good value at 0, and it's crackling, that means that we've got bad contacts inside. We could do one of two things. We could either replace it, or before we do that, we could spray some contact cleaner in there and then just kind of sweep it back and forth a couple of times and see if it makes it any better. What if we have no tone? That's a big one. Sometimes people have a guitar and the tone knob doesn't work. We get this question a lot. Well, there's only really two reasons why that would happen. One is it's not grounded to the output jack. This one is. Or the pot is bad. Why would this not be grounded to the output jack? There's a couple of reasons. One is because, now this is a Telecaster, so that metal plate kind of grounds everything together automatically. But what if we were mounting the same stuff into a plastic pick guard? Or what if we were mounting it into the wood top of, say, a PRS style guitar or a Epiphone Les Paul? Then you wouldn't have a direct connection of that metal plate. Now you say, well, wait a minute, but that Telecaster or that Stratocaster pickguard has foil on it. Do not rely on the foil. Run a wire. If you're going to mount it in plastic or you're going to mount it in wood, run a wire between these two components. Run a, to ground it. All things that flow electricity on a guitar need to be grounded. So the volume pot needs to be grounded, the tone pot needs to be grounded, and the pickups need to be grounded. It doesn't matter where. There's a lot of myths about ground loops in a passive guitar. That's all crap. Basically, the only ground on a guitar is at the output jack. So just make sure that everything attaches and terminates at the output jack somehow. I solder everything to the back of the volume pot. It's a pretty easy deal. This is going to get the same ground over here. Sometimes I'll run a wire from here to here, like on a Strat, but just make sure that the tone pot is grounded. Now, is a cap ever going to go bad? In really old vintage guitars, like with old paper and oil caps, I've seen them dry out and short, but any kind of modern thing like this, whether it's the little brown cheap chiclet ones, whether it's a ceramic one, whether it's the little green chiclet ones, whether it's this Sprague orange drop like we use, these will not wear out in your lifetime, basically. They will last the entirety of our lifetime because they will never overvolt, and they will, which means they'll never like burn up because they got too much voltage, and they will never overheat. So as long as they work, they will work. The only thing, like I said, the more often than not issue is ground. That's the biggest thing, is grounding. Now, what if we're going through our guitar and we have a pickup that doesn't work? The very next thing I would check, because this is how a pickup is going to be hooked up. You're going to have a wire to the switch and you're going to have a wire to ground, which is usually going to be at the back of the pot. So then I would check, take my leads of my meter, and I would check wherever the pickup hooks up to the guitar and ground. So I would check it here. This isn't soldered on, but wherever this hooks up to the guitar. Sometimes it's to the back of a pot, like on a Les Paul. Sometimes it's to the switch, like on a Fender. So I would check this, and then you should see, with the volume knob all the way up, you should see basically whatever the value of your pickup should be, right? And you know, oh, it should be 7K, a Strat should be somewhere 5 or 6, some, humbucker might be 7K up to 15K, some, you know what I mean? As long as the volume pot is on 10, because that'll goof that up. So the volume pot's on 10, you should have right about there at the switch. Well, what if you don't? Well, then that means the pickup's bad. What if you do, but the pickup doesn't work still? It means the switch is bad. Simple as that. And that's all the components. That's all the components in the guitar. Your pickup, your switch, your volume pot, your tone, and your jack. 5 components. Now you could dive way deeper into all of this, but I wanted to keep this pretty high level and pretty simple. Remember that we're thinking about 3 different things that we would see on a digital multimeter. We're seeing a direct short or a connection, right? So if 2 things are directly connected to each other with nothing in between, we should see 0 ohms. When we want to see the resistance of the pickup, we're going to see that, or the resistance of the pot, 250K, 330K, 500K, 1 meg ohm, for example. Or we're going to see an open when something is not connected. So just use common sense and think about how the signal flows in the electric guitar, right? It's going to go from the pickup to the switch, to the volume pot, to the output jack. And then the tone is just going to be grounded and hooked up and stealing some tone. Every component needs to be grounded, but other than that, that's really it. It's not as hard as you would think. Now, I know that you're going to have questions from this, because this is, like I said, it's a very simple, very high level. We're not diving into any one thing here. We have a Facebook group, actually, the DylanTalksTone Facebook group that you can go and ask questions and be a part of conversations every day. I'll leave a link to it in the description because it does help to have conversations with other people. I'll be in there, other people are in there, and we're always kind of helping each other with various problems and stuff. So just do that. There are a bunch of groups like that on Facebook, but one thing you'll find out about ours is you're not going to get flamed for not knowing anything. You're not going to get, everybody's pretty cool in there. I make sure of that. Everybody's pretty cool in there. And so if you have a problem, come hang out. We also have live Patreon hangouts on the last Monday of every month where you can actually bring a problem, a guitar, a problem, be on video. We can troubleshoot it together. We do that kind of stuff too. And if you identify a problem, come to DylanTalksTone.com and buy the part, fix it. What's really neat about this stuff too is I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by it, but you know, a capacitor is only like $5, right? A pot is only like $5. An output jack is only like $5. And we have the good ones. We have the good stuff. This is not like Amazon stuff. This is the good stuff. So, you know, CTS, Borns, Switchcraft, Pure Tone, like all the good stuff. So, and of course pickups, because we make pickups. That's what our real job is. So it's not expensive to make sure that your guitar is reliable. And we have the resources available to make sure that you troubleshoot it correctly. If you're about to make a purchase, you know, if you're on DylanTalksTone and you're like, I don't know if it's the pickup or the switch, hit me in the little chat at the bottom and say, yo, I don't want to buy the wrong part here. What do you think this might be? I'll talk you through it. It's kind of part of the thing we do here at DylanTalksTone. So I just want to make sure that you also understand the meter thing. I'll put a couple of these meters in the link in the description of this video so you can buy them. I think everybody should have a digital multimeter in their arsenal so that they can do this troubleshooting. Even if you're not real sure how to use it, let's say you buy a set of pickups from us and you install them in your guitar and you have an issue. Maybe something's touching that's not supposed to touch or something. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that happens, right? Some shielding's touching or there's something funky, maybe a bad solder joint or something as you're installing. If you have a multimeter, I can walk you through it. If you don't have a multimeter, it's tough, right? So for the $30 or so that it costs to get one, it's a tool that I think everybody should have if they play electric guitar and do any kind of mods. Anyway, there you go. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. If you have questions about any of this stuff, get it in the comments and maybe we'll talk about it in a future video. Hit the like and the subscribe, do all that stuff. We'll see you in the next one.